Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our PhillyStat presentation today for the Procurement Department. I'm Dave Wilson, First Deputy Managing Director. We'd like to go around the table and make introductions, and then we will turn it over to the Commissioner to provide his presentation on today's PhillyStat. Start with you, Kat.
Okay, Kat Lamb, Director of PhillyStat.
Kay Walters, PhillyStat Analyst.
Nakia Bankers, Administrative Specialist, Finance Department.
Debbie Beatrice, Administrative Service Center.
Hugh Wortman, Procurement Commissioner.
Mary Stitz, Deputy Commissioner Procurement.
Trevor Day, Procurement Operations Manager.
Marcia Miller, HR Manager, Human Resources.
Rosetta Liu, 301 Contact Center Director.
Stuart Alter, Director, Engagement Management, Office of Innovation and Technology.
Albert Titoio, Director of Human Resources.
Great, thank you all again. Before I turn over to the Commissioner, I want to turn over to Kat to kind of give an overview of the new model, if you will, and kind of let the departments already know, but let our viewing public know what we're doing new for FY13.
So for anybody out there who's used to looking at these presentations after the meetings when we put them up on our website, there's 3 slides that we have added that are the purpose behind them is to help the public better understand sort of the scope of what the department provides and why we chose the measures we chose. So there's an introductory slide that just has a little bit more language about what PhillyStat is, but the main tool that we're now using to better educate people about the scope of what a department does is something called a logic model. And that really shows the inputs that are used by a department to provide certain services that then results in outputs and outcomes. And this lens also allows us to sort of see what measures we're looking at. So now the other changes that we've made throughout the presentation is we're moving more towards dashboards, less away from charts. And the dashboards, we're clearly defining when we're looking at a measure, is it an input, is it an output, is it an outcome? A good performance management system is looking at basically a variety of all of those key metrics, because that gives you the full perspective and numbers of what's happening in a department on a quarterly basis. So slide 4 shows the logic model for procurement, and we went over this with you guys at your fiscal year planning department meeting. Slide 5 then just shows how the logic model aligns to the framework that we use here in the ops model around the 5 sections. So when we talk about finance, technology, and people, those are really the inputs that are used by a department to provide the services they do. Really, the operations section and the customer service section, those are our outputs and our outcomes. So that 5 is just basically aligning the old model to what this new logic model is. But we don't need to cover these in the meetings. It's just there so when the information goes out, it's a tool for people to help understand, like I said, what the scope of the department does. So with that, we can start with we can go back to the core mission slide, actually, and we can start.
All right,
I'm
Commissioner.
sure a lot of our regular viewers have already seen this particular page, but I'm going to go over it again for anybody that's new out there. The Procurement Department takes pride in achieving its core objective, which is contributing to Philadelphia government, working efficiently, effectively, with integrity and responsiveness. We work as a team to obtain quality goods, services, and construction in an open, timely, and cost-effective manner by a competitive, fair, and socially responsible process in accordance with the law. And we're constantly working on improving through customer service and performance management. Strategic direction is also relatively similar to the PhillyStat meetings we've had in the past. In the short term, we're continuing to streamline our internal processes with what we do have available. In the long term, we're hoping to get more available. We're stabilizing operations. We are a little short-handed. We had some people out on maternity leave. They're all back. And hopefully get caught up to some of the things we fell behind on during the quarter and during this past quarter. We want to reassess the current team's capacity. We've still been moving some people around. We're starting some cross-training. We'll get into that a little bit later. In the long term, we're looking to how we can transform city purchases through various things. I noticed Governor Corbett just passed a new rule where small businesses will be getting a large chunk of the contracts, and maybe there's something like that we can work. Obviously, there's legislative issues and so on, but it's basically if you have 100 or less employees, are setting aside current contracts just for those people. we sort of do that for small order purchases already, but he's looking at larger contracts.
He also expanded the state definition for, to include veteran-owned businesses as well, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, although I'm not sure that's actually in this issue we just put out, it's like a subheading, which we're going to work on. I don't think
Think it's official yet?
I just scanned it briefly this morning.
Okay.
It just came out on the 19th, so I didn't get to it. But yes, that was part of it. Long-term, we've already talked about identifying further legislative solutions such as for the small businesses, and we're continually working on modernizing our systems through technology, which Stuart will get into a little bit later, and just to continue to try and do better and better. As always, we're continually focused on the mayor's fourth and fifth goals. Philadelphia becomes the greenest city in America. We work with all the sustainability groups around, including our own, trying to buy green whenever possible and using the LEED standards and so on. And for making sure that Philadelphia government works better for everyone. Again, it's all part of customer service in our department as we try and solve people's problems and get them what they need when they need it, and so on. We're currently in an operations stabilization mode, as I just mentioned, due to a number of significant short-term challenges, staffing shortages, which we're just about up to stuff on that, and longer-term matters related to technology. Again, Stuart will chat on that later. Operations, we'll bring up Trevor Day, who's the operations manager for the procurement department. As you can see, before Trevor even starts, we got lots of numbers. And this is different from our charts, and it may be a little difficult for everybody to understand because there's so many numbers up there. But I think as we move through different quarters, we'll probably be able to eliminate some and enlighten others on some of the other ones. But Trevor, you want to go ahead?
This is I just briefly put in there, this is our green initiative trying to reduce paper, right? So we're supporting mayor's goal.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk through every single number on this. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so we're just going to touch upon each line real quick and look in terms of the fourth quarter, which is what we're sort of discussing and evaluating today, and maybe touch upon a comparison between last fiscal year, fiscal year 11 and fiscal year 12. Now in fiscal year 13, so I can't say current fiscal year. Anyway, the number of public works bids that we awarded was 18. Again, this is just a cyclical. Not something that procurement has control over. It's dependent upon the departments and what their project schedule and project management is. That total was $12 million. Again, we have no control over what projects they're putting out or RSA, and so it could be the streets department, aviation, public property is really controlling those projects. Water department as well. SS&E, that's service, supply, and equipment. The number of public bids that we've done, sealed bids, was significant in the fourth quarter, 64 as a total. Let's see. Later on, I'll just break those down into departmental and citywide bids, and I'll give you sort of the numbers. The total dollar value that we awarded was $50 million. Again, a lot of departments and the city like having their contracts begin and end July 1, which is the start of our fiscal year and end of the old fiscal year. So we typically see a little bit larger volume in the fourth quarter. That's when we're awarding a large number. For our operations, we try and spread those contract awards out throughout the year, which sometimes makes it a little bit more difficult for departments to manage their funds because they're cutting multiple purchase orders when they cross over from one fiscal year to the other, but it's just not possible to have every single contract start and end at the beginning of the fiscal year. So, for the fifth line is small order purchases. All of those purchases are under $30,000, and they're sort of they're not public sealed bids. They're sort of bids that are under $30,000 that are managed by the departments.
That are
Initiated by the department. Procurement processes those transactions, makes sure that They're competitively solicited, so that means they're solicited to at least 3 to 10 or 15 vendors. There is some competition. If there isn't competition, there's a justification for that, that it's a sole source or a sole product, that would, basically tell us that there is only one vendor or 2 vendors that are able to provide that product or service. That 283 SOPs that we processed last quarter amounted to about $1.8 million. In total, we usually process about $6 or $7 million of small order purchases throughout the fiscal year.
Can we, on the next go-round for that category for this dashboard, can we put that amount, the dollar amount awarded for
For each quarter?
each quarter, yeah, for small order purchases? I mean, I think that's, because of that size. I mean, I think I also like to point out, I mean, you made mention of it, I think the competition piece is quite different here, so, than it is when we do sealed bids.
Yeah, yes.
You've got a larger number of folks.
I don't look at every small
Right.
order purchase, and we don't have a way of, we don't track competition, but
Right.
the ones that I've seen, yeah, there's a higher volume of respondents.
Okay.
And the other thing to note is that, I just took a quick look, and just in this quarter, I was curious what departments were processing the most SOPs, and that was Parks and Rec, Commerce, which includes the airport, prisons, health, and OIT, Office of Technology. So, and that's something else that, in addition, as if we want to put on the slide or we want to just have a discussion about, we can look at that. It's pretty easy to look at.
Yeah, I think the discussion piece is probably good
Okay.
relative to the department side. I think on the flip side, I mean, it's good that this is a piece that's being initiated by the departments. But I also wonder if there is a, for lack of a better term, if it's being overused. Are departments using it as a way in which to circumvent the bidding process, or using it to chain together these smaller purchases?
Right.
So that, again, to circumvent a longer, more timely
Right.
piece, so.
Yeah, I think, the main reason that we're involved with that is actually to take a look at that. So it's a
Okay.
manual review by procurement staff to say, is this something that we already have under contract? And if it is, it'll get sent back to the department.
Okay, good.
But again, like I said, it's a manual review. Is there room for, things to get through that are under contract? Absolutely. And there's no, technology solution where we see what's being put out and then we're reviewing it electronically. It's pieces of paper that are compiled
Right.
and given to us.
And then at the end of it is where it's entered into our
Into AdPix.
AdPix,
Yep.
so it doesn't become electronic until the very end of the
Right, and
process.
even the record in AdPix is basically just the purchase order, the vendor, the amount, and maybe a description of what was awarded.
Okay.
And the funding code, and things like that. So the other measures that we have with regards to sealed bids is we have 2 different types of sealed bids we process. There's departmental bids and then there's citywide bids. Departmental bids are exactly what it says, initiated by a department, identified by a department as a need that's generally over $30,000, and where they need a contract in place to make purchases against on a regular basis. So our goal is to get those contracts in place within 90 days. Of the 64 sealed bids, 46 were departmental, which amounted to about $5 million in total contract value. We hit the 90-day goal 57% of the time, although, I always look at, are there a couple outliers that, had we done something a little bit quicker, would that have gone up? So we had 2 contracts that took 91 days, which would have bumped us up to 62%. Again, I just want to reiterate that, we've been sort of at a skeleton level of staffing for a little while, which we're just recovering from, and more at full staff. And I think, our goal is to increase that percentage, and I think, we can start to do that over the next possibly next quarter, because that sometimes reflects, bids that have been in process, but the following one, I think we should see a better percentage.
It's interesting though, because didn't you guys choose the 90 days, because that was roughly what the average that you guys looked at one point, it was like 100 days or 90 days?
It
So
was.
50% makes sense, because,
Right. Okay.
I mean, not that it's good, but it, that it aligns to how you chose your targets, and now it's just
Right.
driving towards meeting those 90
Right,
days.
Right, it was around about 99 to 100 days, so we decided to go down to 90. Recently, when I say recently, in the past year, Trevor actually dove into that a little bit more, and that number was a bit higher, probably more around 110.
Yeah.
115, but
Okay.
we still decided to stick with the 90 because the observations that we've done thus far, we feel that's still a reasonable goal
Yeah.
at this point. If we decide that it's different, we'll discuss that with your team and see if we need to readjust.
So, to channel Rich, so how does that goal of the 90 days, how do you push that down to your techs, your buyers, and to all those staff that are in that workflow to get that done?
Well, we met with our groups in smaller groups, our department in smaller groups, and we spoke to them about the 90-day goal, and that we felt through reviewing data and having some discussion that we felt that was reasonable. We, on a bi-weekly basis, Trevor actually meets with those groups to see how they're doing. Are there any issues that we can jump in and help with that they're getting pushback or, it's just being stalled.
Sure.
And it's not helping us get to that 90-day goal. So we just continuously communicate and have each step of the process move at a reasonable pace, because when you bring them all together, that's what's going to get us to our goal.
What was the feedback from the staff when you told them that was? I mean, it sounds as if you just basically you said to them, it's going to be 90 days. We've looked at the data and we believe 90 days is going to be the goal.
And I would say that we also ask for their feedback.
Okay.
I mean, that's how we communicate. We don't just give out rules or make changes. We take our time, we review data, but we also see what feedback we have from seasoned staff members and also new staff members, because they may have different viewpoints.
Sure.
I would say generally, it wasn't well received. However, we've been working with our staff members that, we still think this is a reasonable goal. And like I said, as time goes on, if it seems like it is unreasonable, we will readjust it. And also, if they're having any problems with reaching that goal, they need to communicate with us to see what we can do to help that out.
Got it. Good to know.
I have a quick question. Are you incorporating that thought process into their performance review or expectations?
Not at this moment. I would say that or I shouldn't say not at this moment. I would say that we keep it in mind how you're progressing through your work generally. And Trevor, you can jump in. How you're just meeting whatever, how you're moving the work along. I wouldn't say that we say, okay, out of so many, you didn't meet 90. And I think that's because we're not at a point where we feel that 90 might need to be readjusted. We also aren't at a point where we know for sure what the trends are that may be holding them back from reaching that 90. But we certainly can keep in mind case by case, especially, and that's in the positive and the negative, that someone who's constantly moving their work very quickly, well, what are the reasons, and they certainly should be accommodated for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I also think that, a 90-day goal is probably a good average goal, but there are certainly bids that are gonna, no matter what you do, it's gonna take longer than that anyway, depending on what's in the bid itself, and trying to define that, and whether we've created the specifications for it or not, and if it's something brand new, if there's response back from the department on questions that we have. It's something that's not necessarily within the control of our employees. Whether they're addressing that and sort of bringing that up to management and helping identify that would certainly get into their review. But whether or not they're actually meeting the 90-day goal, I don't think would be a specific thing that would be in their review.
Well, are we looking at taking some of those days out of the 90 days? For instance, if it happens to be at the law department for a longer period of time than normal,
Yes.
that's going to affect that. It's not, I guess, fair to have your buyers or have our buyers get it done in 90 days when somebody has another department for 60. So I mean, we have to work around that, and we haven't gotten the technology yet to be able to really do that, but
Right, so. at
we know
this-
it's there, and we're trying to figure out what we can do to fix it.
However, if we're meeting with them on a bi-weekly basis and they don't tell us that it's sitting with the law department, then that may actually end up in their review.
All right. So we were at percent of citywide contracts renewed, established before contract expires.
Yes, so again, I think this is, the last couple quarters and this quarter has been a little bit of reflection of the fact that we've been a little bit more flexible. Citywide contracts are contracts that we initiate and control and look at when they start and when they end. And with our staff, especially our staff, that's our unit that helps develop specs, has been decimated, and we've had, at times one person in the office for a period of time, or two people writing specifications for all the contracts in the city. So we haven't met this goal of getting, contracts in place on time as we have, as well as we have in the past. And I think, like I said, I think we will start to see that happening again, maybe next quarter or the quarter after that, as we get new staff in and staff back from being on maternity leave. So we've been at 55%. Some contracts, and this isn't to say that we haven't had contracts lapse. We've just extended some contracts for a month or two beyond, when they ended, whether it was a year, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years.
And just to be clear, I mean, we don't have a target listed on this piece right now, and that's something that you guys are working for, or working toward for FY13.
Yep.
So in the Q1 report for 13, we'll have that on there, but what you're giving us right now are just kind of some of the outliers here.
Yes.
On why your numbers are.
Yeah.
The way
And again, it's hard, having started last year, looking at historical, this is a manual data grab. So it's going into two different systems and trying to, figure out, did we have a contract in place before the new contract, before the old one expired? And looking at historical data and trying to do that just hasn't been a priority.
Sure.
So.
And for this all to be relative, we do need to sit down and figure out what the target is. We might find out that we're not far off from a reasonable target once we sit down and really look at it. Also, this is in consideration with the resources that we currently have, and I think the staff is doing a pretty great job considering the resources we have.
Let me ask real quick, do you have a number of what the number of citywide bids are, or citywide contracts, I should say?
Somewhere in 100 area.
Yeah, I mean, that's you want it by quarter, by fiscal year, by.
Fiscal year is about 100.
I think overall total fiscal year, so they're about 100?
Yeah, no. I'd say there's probably 180 contracts.
Okay.
Altogether, but
yeah.
citywide for.
Some bids have 20 awards. There's two plumbing bids that have 20 different awards. So
Right.
That's 40 right there.
Okay.
Right.
But then you have.
I knew I was opening up Pandora's box.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it's just too many, it's a difficult number to say, this is what, this was awarded in one quarter, but then the next quarter, we didn't have any of these multiple
Right,
awards.
I'm asking just for context purposes,
Okay.
basically trying to figure out, when you say 55%.
55% of what?
Is it
Right.
2 or is it
Right.
100?
Yeah.
Right.
Are you speaking of citywides for the quarter, or, that's?
Well, and what I would say is, if we look at contract award, so we have $5 million that was awarded to departmental contracts.
Okay.
So that means $45 million was awarded to citywide contracts.
Okay.
So I look at, contract value,
Right.
the bulk of the contract value is gonna be in citywide contracts.
Okay.
Which makes sense because
Right.
you have, multiple departments
Right.
buying off of one contract.
Correct.
As opposed to one department on one contract. So yeah, I mean, the bulk of the contract value is within that citywide, line.
Online,
Yeah.
right. Gotcha. Gotcha.
So.
But if that's a area you want us to try to track quarterly or yearly, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's talk about it. Let's
Okay.
talk about it some more as we look at the finalized targets and things to that extent. Again, I'm looking at it from a context basis, and what's the best way to see that? Okay, so we're on to
Competition.
the competition.
competition, we continue to average, our median number is about 2, which is historically what the city has done
Right.
in sealed bids for the
Right.
last several years,
Right.
many years, as far as I know.
Seems like major changes if we wanted to try to change that number.
Yeah, I think there would be, maybe Hugh, do you want to talk about competition a little bit?
Do you want to give the top 10?
My list this time, I had my list last time.
I think
I think we all.
for the next PhillyStat, we'll have Hugh's top 10, like Letterman's top 10.
Bring it with me.
Hugh's top 10 list of.
What holds back competition?
But, you know, it's safe to say that there are a variety of issues. And
Yeah.
like, you know, terms and conditions, technology, there are some products that we asked for that are limiting what vendors can respond, you know, all of that.
And there's
gets-
and some things are a limited market.
Yep.
You know, so, I mean,
Absolutely.
So understand, okay.
So,
So percentage of competitive bid with single responses, that seems to be on and about where it's been historically. A little bit of an increase here this last quarter, but.
yeah, and for the fiscal year, it's been 31%, which is consistent with 30%. And actually, this is something that I did look at historical data, and it's been about 30%, you know, more or less over the last 4 years, 5 years.
Okay, good deal. Alrighty, panel 9, or slide 9. Competitive bids with the longest amount of time. I know, and you guys kind of touched base on that a little bit before, but.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we've done in the past is step through each one. If you want me to do that, I can do that.
Let's take the most, let's take the top 2. I mean, the Sigma Aldridge for health and,
Maintenance, repair, belt conveyors? Like, no.
The court reporting.
the court reporting.
Yeah.
So, the top one, it doesn't tell you this, but I'll tell you that it was bid out and rebid out 5 times, so that contributed to the length of
Why was it rebid?
essentially the first time we actually got 3 vendors to respond. 2 of them were automatically disqualified because they didn't submit the processing fees and things that they were required. And the third was eventually disqualified as well, so we had to rebid. Second time, the department didn't like the pricing, so we sort of continued down, and eventually, you know, we ended up, I think, getting 1 respondent that we could award to. So, you know, the city, as we bid out, you know, the vendors are, you know, submitting bid processing checks. There's bond, you know, the bid bonds or other fees that they have to pay.
Right.
You know, and they're gonna be disinclined to continue bidding on something potentially.
The respondents were disqualified. Can they bid again?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I mean, depending on what it is. If we tell them that they're disqualified because of their ability to perform, then sure they can bid again, but it's unlikely that they will. But if it's a matter of, you know, not signing a contract or not submitting the fees that are appropriated, or a bank check as opposed to a company check, you know, those are all things that get rectified.
How much are the fees that you have to pay?
Well, they vary depending on the amount of the bid.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's in the terms and conditions we're glad to show to you, but I mean,
okay.
it changes.
So, but what I hear here, I'm kind of interested in this one with regarding to clock mechanics. So when does the clock start, stop, and then when does it just, you know, saying that you had 3 that came out, the 2 were disqualified, ultimate third one was disqualified, then why isn't that?
Right. So, I mean, for this, you know, it starts from the very beginning, and this is a departmental bid. So, I mean, I look at it from a department's point of view. When can, you know, I submit the request, when can I start, you know, ordering against that contract?
Right.
So this entails that
Okay,
whole
so
process.
this is a broader
Yes.
view.
I mean,
Okay.
if we want to look at each one of those as an individual, you know, that we could do that.
As long as that's
Our
what's
systems don't
understood
actually
and defined
necessarily
as.
capture that
Yeah,
data.
right, and I
So we'd
think
have to dissect
the
it.
beginning
This
point
may
doesn't
be-
really move,
right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that needs to be noted, that this is how this is the universe here, this is how it's being viewed.
Right.
That's my concern there.
Yeah. And then the second one, I mean, is interesting. We talked about this actually last quarter. This is actually related to the court reporting bid has 2 awards, a primary and a secondary. This is actually the secondary award, which took 357 total days. But there was an appeal against our original award.
Okay.
So we awarded to a primary and a secondary. The primary ended up not being qualified. through kind of a legal appeal. So then we took the secondary, became the primary, and the third bidder, third low, became the secondary, and that was several months after we had actually done the original award.
Right.
But, our system checks us as that second contract wasn't in place for 357 days from the original time that we started working on it.
Right. And we need to note that there was not a gap in service.
There was-
We-
yeah.
No, there's no gap in service.
That's what. And so I know I said the top two, but I see the last one here, the 2 minutes materials.
Mhm.
So it took a while to get asphalt?
Yes,
What
that was.
was the deal?
That was also rebid 3 times.
Okay.
And again, this is probably, some of these bids we award by section. So again, this might have been, we could award sections on the original bid, and then if we rebid, it'll be that other section.
So
that
you're
hasn't
saying
been-
geographical, the department had it broken down in geographical
It could have been
sections or something
geographical,
like
I
that?
don't know how this
Okay.
is actually broken down.
Okay.
Could be by product,
Okay.
could be geography.
Okay.
So, and then additionally, this took a while for supplier diversity to be nailed down on who was whether the contracts, the bidders were qualified.
I got you. Okay. Good. All right.
And the third one, which we didn't talk about, I'll just throw that out there, it was actually a brand new bid that we've never done before. So it took a little while to develop the specifications. And, which I think it's great, it's not great that it took that long,
Right.
but it's great to get.
Finally get it.
New bids in place, and sometimes it is a long process
Right.
you're working with multiple departments. We worked with the technology office, the Office of Sustainability. There was some staff transition during that, which kind of, knowledge transfer and getting new people on board and taking ownership of, what we're asking to bid out, sometimes takes some time.
And interest here is, how many competitors did you have? Do you remember how many people came?
I don't.
Would that be-
Okay.
I asked because it was a new.
couple of them, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't recall.
Okay.
So we had, OIT had security concerns, and sustainability had, environmental concerns, so it was a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good deal.
All right.
All right, customers, on the customer service side?
I will take that. So as you can see from this slide, in FY12 Q4, we had 87.5% of our respondents were either satisfied or very satisfied. Some of the key trends that we found was that they felt that our staff was professional, they felt that we moved in a timely manner, they felt they were very competent, that they were able to answer all questions. If there were problems, they resolved them as smoothly as possible. So those are most of the trends that we found. This is based off of, I believe, 16 responses, which is not a large amount of responses, and 14 of the 16 were either satisfied or very satisfied.
So who did go to, they went out to the procurement?
They went out to the procurement specialists and all the departments throughout the city.
How many is that?
I think that might have been upwards of 70, I believe, but I will double check that for you, but I'm almost positive.
Was the 90-day question a part of the?
No. No, it was just more of a general question regarding timeliness.
Okay.
And remember, 90-day is for departmentals, excuse me, yes, but that was not part of it.
Mary, besides this metrics, what other metrics are you looking at for the next quarter under customer service?
I really think that's something we should work with you on, because as everyone knows, recently our chief of staff, who really focused on customer service, moved on, and we do have another person coming on board, and we would like to sit down and really go through the survey again, make sure that our questions are appropriate, and really make sure we're getting them to the appropriate people. I would really like to increase responsiveness. But when it comes to the particular questions, I think we could really use your guidance to see if we're focusing on the right things. Usually timeliness is the biggest trend. We did a customer service survey about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and we actually got very similar results.
Mhm.
We may have gotten more response, I think it might have been more in the 30s the last time, but we did get similar results, which was very interesting to me, that even many years later, when we do a similar survey, we're getting similar results.
And this, I mean, in conversation with Phil, this 16, he may have only reached out to people who actually submitted bids. So it may
From
have
that
been a
quarter?
smaller,
Okay.
you know,
That's true.
group
Okay.
of individuals, not the larger, you know,
Right.
so I think he was looking at who has actually submitted work for procurement in the last quarter or 6 months.
Right.
Um,
So our
and so
response
that,
might be a little.
yeah, so it might have only been 20 people that was sent to, and we got 16 responses. Again, we'd have to look at that and see who he sent to.
I think when you guys appoint your new customer service officer, we need to sit down and level set with them and
Yeah.
reevaluate key metrics as well as the survey.
Yeah.
If that sounds
I
good.
agree.
And Rosetta, if that sounds good to you too.
Yeah, that's gonna work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I want to be able to get out of this is that, you know, I'm looking at this response and it's a positive response, but however, the responses or information or feedback that we get from others is contrary to this. So I'm trying to figure out what is the tool that we use and what is that population that we send this tool out or this
Right.
survey out to,
Right.
to get better or more feedback. I mean, because we all know that, you know, it's like, you know, it takes a long time to get through procurement, procurement's an obstacle, yada, yada, yada. However, you know, we hear quite different when we deal with folks that are probably a little bit more intimate with the procurement process in these departments. So it's really trying to sift this whole thing out and figure out
It might be
what is it.
more, I mean, it's the equivalent, you might want to be starting to survey what's equivalent of project managers in the departments, right? So the people or operations managers who are delivering a service, and they're the ones who will perceive something being held up, regardless if it's on procurement's end, law's end, or the internal departmental procurement specialists. They're the ones who are going to be like, oh, I can't get something done because procurement, quote unquote, is holding me up. Right, so like the procurement specialists in the actual departments might not have that same perspective as the people who have to manage a project or deliver a service.
Right, so I would just ask, what's the purpose of us doing that? You know, I mean, if there are, let's just say 10 variables in making purchases, you know, and we're one of those variables. So there's
Yeah.
executive, level approval within the department, there's funding, there's, all these things, and we're gonna do a survey. How do we take that information and then do something with it? You know, it's not,
No.
Because if we're, yeah,
Look, I put it on the table, I put it out there on the table because we already have something that we're going out, pushing out to the departments to find out how our performance is.
Right.
And and maybe it's something else that we need to do, whether it's through some sort of, organizational analysis that we need to do to figure out what is that perception of procurement and why that perception holds.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm just putting it out here on the table for a discussion. If we're saying that, look, we're not going to get it through doing a customer service survey, all well and good. But we need to identify that chatter or that chirping that goes on about the performance of procurement still goes on. So how do we?
yeah, and if you designed it well, I mean, I think to Dave's point, we might find out that it doesn't matter if procurement does departmental bids in 90 days or 100 days. Customer satisfaction is actually impacted by something else that happens outside of that process, right? Or it's like if we really want to be strategic about trying to improve perception and improve procurement, it'd be better to spend some of our resources and time on other parts, perhaps T's and C's or something else. How you design that survey is the challenge, but it could help figure out exactly strategically where we need to be investing our time, which is a resource.
And I mean,
survey is a mechanism of getting feedback from the end customer, so we have to define who the end customer is, right? And what you'll see is, like some of the key things where it's a bigger process, you're just a small part of this, is to how do you educate your customers as to what your role is?
Right.
Because right now, if I wanted to know what your processes are, where do I, or what your policies are, where do I go to get that?
Right.
And a lot of times, those little things go such a long way, and that's the feedback that you'll get from your end customers. And they'll give you compliments, and they'll also tell you when things are wrong.
Right.
So really, what this is just trying to understand where we're falling short and how do we address that? Or if we're doing well, continue to do that.
Exactly.
You know, because you said they gave you a lot of compliments on the professionalism of the staff.
Professionalism, competency, timeliness, and also one of the unique comments that I found very impressive was they felt that the efficiency had grown and the communication had grown recently, and that the survey itself was a reflection of that. So I thought that was very impressive of a comment. And we do continue to do workshops. Many years ago, the procurement department did workshops, and they had stopped for a while, but now they have been going since Trevor's gotten here. Every quarter, there is a workshop, and actually, the next workshop, which I think we're probably going to talk about, is focused on new people to the city who may not understand procurement and may not understand procurement's role. So we can be very direct to that audience that this is what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so that's happening next Monday, and, we've limited it to basically people who are new to the city within 4 years. Or that's what we've requested.
So it's a sort of
And-
an orientation?
Yeah, we're just going over, sort of procurement organization, terminology.
Procurement 101.
Right.
Yeah.
So, again, it's just to get that. And at times we've had these in the past, and they get dominated by one or two people who've been here for a while and may have gripes. This is a way to, sort of limit it and say we want to educate the people who are new to the city.
So how can someone, get that information and be a part of that orientation?
We send out an email and invite everyone who's, once again, on our
Distribution list.
distribution list, which is several procurement specialists throughout the city of Philadelphia. Once again, upwards of 100, I would say, invitations
There's a lot
go
of
up.
people on it.
There's a lot. So I think we get it out there, and I do believe we're getting it to the right people, and we get very good response. Usually we have to actually turn people away.
Yeah.
Because we usually have a room that's holds about 50
people.
And then many times we do have to turn people away.
Well, it sounds like there's been an evolution, or there's been a change here, because I think there are like around 40 to 47 procurement text, official titles in the city. But I think what's happening is that more people are becoming involved in
Yes.
the procurement side of things. So it's incumbent on you guys to continue to push this education piece out there so that you don't.
Right. And there's also, it isn't to say that if somebody who's been here for 10 years and they're getting into a new role, then they're going to be purchasing things, like we will decline them from coming.
Right, yeah, right.
Of course.
At the same time, we just didn't want the same set of people coming, this quarter, and we wanted to mix it up and get some new faces.
Do you have some room Monday?
So
Sure.
far, yes. Yeah.
For you,
Lurk-
Stuart,
Maybe
of
we'll
course.
lurk in a corner.
Well, that's an interesting point, because you have a team of project managers or a team of projects that are coming up, that you're going to need the people that become familiar with
Yeah,
the.
and quite frankly, that's engagement management. We want to really start to understand much more in depth what it is that you're doing and how technology can take a
And we'd be
help
happy to
out.
meet with departments. We did for a while, and we'll probably start up again, is departmental visits, when we actually went out to the departments themselves and just said, hey, how are you doing?
Right.
What can we help you with? And certainly, if a department has an influx of new people, if they have some new projects coming along, and they just want to make sure, hey, procurement, we want to give you a heads up that we're going to have some big purchasing coming down the line. It's very important. Get in touch with us. We'll be happy to meet with you and kind of make sure that we're in the right place in the timeline that you're trying to meet.
Maybe we should do a special OIT session.
Maybe we should. We've had departmental visits with OIT. I think we've had at
But it's a
least
unique
two.
perspective. It's not just how do you do purchasing,
Right.
it's how do you do purchasing and how can we help.
Yeah, there might be a
It's two
special,
different perspectives on it.
and I also think to project managers as opposed to people who are, sort of
Procurement
touching ad picks or the financials and
right.
figuring out, I think that's important.
Project managers, then you know about the risks, to
Yeah.
build it into timelines and
Yes.
all that stuff.
If I could just have one more line on the customer service and the negative comments that you're getting. I think a large portion of them is just an old cliche. We don't make the rules, but we do have to enforce them. And when we tell a department you can't do that, because that's what city charter says, it's not city charter's fault, it's procurement's fault.
And that was the trend also. And I mean, we only had 2 that were not very satisfied or satisfied. And I would say the trend in those were, it did have to deal more with the rules that we have to enforce.
And we'll go on to finance. That's all right with everybody?
That's gonna be, is that gonna be another top 10 list next time?
I'm sorry, David.
The second top 10 list, why it's not procurement's fault.
Funny how every
I can do
department
that
has
too.
that. Right.
Nakia or Debbie?
Nakia, I think, is gonna
Okay.
be the spokesperson.
We're currently, for the total general fund, projecting a $500,000 deficit for the total general fund. That's mostly due to Class 200 state mandated advertising funds. Last year, we projected $500,000, but we ended up having more costs that actually had to be paid under FY12 because $500,000 wasn't enough. So we figured we asked for more for this fiscal. Other than that, Class 100 had a surplus due to a lot of turnover and delays in hiring. Class 3 and 400 and overtime also went into surplus. And for revenue, they hit actually closer this year than last year to the target for FY12. And for the water fund, they're projecting a surplus due to the 2 employees that were on the water fund. Both of them were off. There was a few months where nobody was on the water fund. People were just recently identified to be put on there for this fiscal.
Okay. When we talk revenues, we're talking about bond revenue, is that what,
This is, the revenue is for,
or is this for asset sales?
all of them.
All of it?
Bond, assets, everything.
Well, there's no bond fees, there's security fees.
I'm sorry, security fees, right?
And bid security and performance security fees.
Okay.
For anything under 500,000.
Okay.
And I think also including all the vehicle sales.
So it's the asset and
everything.
the,
All
all
of
of
it,
it.
all
come
of
in.
it is included.
Okay, all right, good deal.
400 is over 500.
All right.
And once again, I should say that our revenue, a lot of it is determined by the number of bids that we have out there.
Correct.
So if we only get, if the number of bids gets reduced because of budget cuts, well, then our revenue is gonna go down because we have less bids.
Right,
So,
understood.
Okay.
technology.
All right, so do you mind, Stuart? I'll
No,
do
go
what
ahead.
my little update about this. Okay, so IT has asked us to reevaluate basically what the projects are for procurement. At the same time, procurement's come to a realization that like a major rehaul of speed or ad picks probably isn't gonna happen in the next 2 to 3 years. And so I think during our planning meeting, procurement asked, if we're not gonna get a big new system, new shiny system, there's smaller things that could maybe we talk about with IT, interim solutions that could help and improve efficiencies while we wait for a larger system. Is that, that's accurate, right? So Trevor sent a list of some of these top items and we forwarded on to IT, and the next step is we're trying to get a meeting with Procurement, MDO, and IT, which would be Stuart and Jim White, to really start triaging this list and say, yes, can we do this, can we not, and try to come up with a committed list of what's going to be tackled in 13 for procurement. Given some vacation schedules, Stuart was just on vacation and now Jim's on vacation, we're going to have to wait. Jim's on vacation for the next 2 weeks, so we're going to have to wait till he comes back. But I think that's,
Yeah, what we want to try to do is stop the wheel spinning, because we've been in enough of these sessions and we're all aware of that. And it's also the whole concept now of engagement management, which is, as I was saying, to really get in depth with you and understand really where technology can come into play, and talk about what our constraints are. Realistically, what can we do, what can't we do, and what are citywide efforts and what are departmental efforts.
I do have, Stuart, one thing as a follow-up. I saw Alex sent out the updates about the website, and in procurement it says that you have the initial requirements, but it's dependent on a speed replacement, the website. So maybe in preparation for this meeting, I think we also need to understand sort of the scope of the website.
I can actually tell you that
Okay.
if you want.
Yeah.
Basically it's, It's not speed replacement, it's speed stabilization.
Stabilization.
So
Oh, okay.
speed, the application speed sits on old servers. The new website is gonna pull data from that, from the existing application.
Okay.
In order for the website, the new phila.gov, to pull from the existing application, that application needs to get moved over to a virtual environment or a new environment.
Okay. Maybe I missed
and
that then.
So they're waiting for us to do testing. We were waiting to get back up to full staff.
Okay.
I think in August, we'll end up doing sort of a 2-week intensive of, double data entry in our current system and new system. So long as that goes smoothly, then we'll move over to the new system. At that point in time, we can start back up again with phila.gov.
Okay.
Is this the vendor data specifically?
This is basically this is related to how we post our bids.
Okay.
So we post our bids. The way that we post our bids comes from speed. If we turn on phila.gov and we don't have a way to post our bids, it ends up becoming all manual. So the one thing that we have that's somewhat automated then goes away.
That's not ideal.
So-
Okay.
It's a deal breaker.
All right, I was just a little bit confused because I think it said replacement. Maybe she did say just stabilization, and I was like, oh, if we're gonna wait for speed replacement till we redo your website, that doesn't seem to make sense. So, okay.
So I think does that answer your?
Yes, that does. Thank you for the clarification.
Trevor, go over the 6 projects that you have in mind, or that you,
Well, that was just a sample of some of the items that we had listed, and I think Mary and I have kind of finalized that list. It's probably 10 or 15 items, and I
Okay.
say 10 or 15, but some of them are kind of concurrent,
Okay.
or like similar things. I think there's, somebody who left years ago from finance department, identified saying that the data warehouse has mapped all the financial data, but it's set up to be able to map all the procurement data. It was never done.
Okay.
And this is dating back 10, 15 years.
Okay.
So one of my projects would be, well, let's take the effort to actually map the data to the existing data warehouse, and then we can actually create, some reports that would be helpful not only to procurement, but to departments.
Right.
So that, a new user could come in and say, I want to know if there's an active contract for fiber and and installation of fiber. So they can put in fiber and do, sort of a wildcard search, which is not something that you can do in AdVix.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing, and come up with a result. Is there an active contract? When does it expire? The other thing that, we also do as kind of a manual report for citywide bids and not for departmental bids, is we publish on a monthly basis all of our contracts and when they expire. But again, we only do it for citywide. If we're able to tap into the data warehouse, we can do it for both citywide and departmental bids. And it just becomes better data that we can publish somewhere. And the other piece along with that is, our intranet site and the site that the departments go to is very stagnant, hasn't been updated for 10 or 15 years. And, can we, update that with some of this other data? There's a water department site that actually publishes everything that we distribute on our email distribution list. Can that be a part of our intranet site? Because I'm pointing people to that site and saying, go look there. I don't know if it's accurate, but I think it is. You can get better information there. So those kind of things.
so just so we know that they're not major projects.
No.
There are some things that are probably some programming pieces, something that's well underneath the small project
Yeah.
threshold,
Right.
and something that will easily can easily be done and help you and streamline your operation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, it's taking manual forms and things of that sort, turning them electronic. What's the best way to make them electronic? How can they flow? How can the information flow from one person to the other? Having stronger reporting capabilities, possibly moving to a point where our vendors can be notified electronically, their POs sent to them electronically, or any kind of communication electronically. And then maybe even grow to having a vendor portal. That may be something that can fall. I think it actually is something that can fall under the small project listing.
Right.
And these are several projects that have, we've looked at for a few years, so we really could, I think we could really pull the trigger on this and get this going.
Very excited for this meeting, actually.
I am too.
Yeah.
Happy back from vacation, Stuart.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I think I'm happy for the meeting also, but you know what? We've been talking about this for some time, so
Yeah.
I think out of the
Yes.
meeting
We need
needs to
action on it.
definitely come out a deliverable and a schedule of those deliverables. So you know, if you're going to be point on this, then I think what has to come out of this is deliverables for those projects. Once you determine, you know, those 10 may end up being worked down to 6 or 5 or whatever, but there's got to be a deliverable for those pieces and how they're going to get done. Whether it's, you know, so that's what's got to come out, and that's what should be reported out at the next, at Q1 PhillyStat.
Yeah,
And I do have a final list that I can forward.
yeah, it'd be good to see.
Both of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, please.
and, yeah, you might, yeah.
And I think you asked for it in prioritization order, which it's not. But I mean, part of that is it's really a dialogue to figure out, you know, what can actually be done. And my feeling is 80 to 90% could probably be done. It's just a matter of either, and it's not stuff that we need to engage.
It's
somebody
IT
else.
finding resources or
Right.
determining if it's
Yeah.
a department
And
resource or
there
an
are
IT
resource
resource.
constraints in IT.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Alrighty, so, we've done finance, we've done technology. See, Stuart, it wasn't painful at all.
It wasn't. Actually, it was a
I had to,
relative. I was like, maybe I should just stay away before this meeting.
there's one, that big red box should be green. You guys did hit the target, so apologize.
No, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so our next slide, we're talking about our people, so. Our
Okay.
CSEA?
Yes.
You're
So
up.
in FY12, the department was budgeted for 51 positions. We started the quarter 4 with 45 employees. We hired 2 people, then we had 3 separations, so we closed the quarter with 44 filled positions, which left us with 7 vacancies. We had at that time 8 employees in drop, which gave us 18% of the workforce or the employees are in drop, and we had 1 retirement eligible, which left us at 2%. And our turnover rate is 7% for quarter 4.
What were the
Okay.
2 separations for? Or the two people who left in quarter 4?
So we had,
Three.
Three.
Was it retirement or is it?
yeah, we had 1 retirement and then two resignations. Okay. So actually, those 2 positions, or all 3, we're currently working on now. I think for the most part, the majority of the vacancies, we pretty much have under wraps we're working on, and we should have those positions filled within this quarter. We do have 2 PERs out there for administrative technical trainees, which we're still awaiting budget approval for. So it would be
Okay.
beneficial if we could get those approvals and move forward with filling that vacancy, because that's those 2 positions are for our procurement tech positions.
Which is really our bread and
Right.
Okay, so you guys are waiting on approval from budget for 2 procurement
Yes.
positions?
And is there an issue with a new exam being given for those 2? Like I saw an email about we might not be able to hire off the existing list if after the new exam is given. Is there a deadline that we need to have like approval by so we can hire immediately? And then, because there was something about waiting until October.
Is there a list
I
expiring,
have to
you
look
saying?
and see for that. I don't recall that.
This is for procurement tech?
Yeah.
But we
Is
use,
it procurement or
we
administrative?
thought it
use
was
the
administrative
administrative
tech.
technical trainee,
Um,
in which at times we use the management trainee list.
And we just announced management training today,
okay.
So
so
maybe that's the
we're
one.
announcing that, but
Is there, I mean, so there's an existing list. Does that existing list expire? That's, I guess, my question.
I
So
have to
does the
check the date
existing-
on that.
Yeah, it probably does expire.
there is a
It's when.
list, so there is a list for management trainee available. I think what we're doing is getting towards the bottom of that list. But you can still use it. The list will be replaced once we establish a new list.
Right.
And we're testing in the week of October. So we would have a list by the end of October.
Yes.
If you want to use the existing list, you can do that, or if you want to wait until October for the new list, that's up to you.
So you're saying that you can use a list up to October, after October, a new list will be available?
We're replacing the
Replacing.
existing list with the new list in October.
But the bigger issue is we have to get the
Because-
budget approval at this point.
Right, because the existing list has had a lot of activity on it. A lot of people have been hired off of the existing list.
Yeah, we've hired a couple of people.
Yes,
Yeah.
we
We've
have,
hired.
absolutely.
I know HR.
Yeah.
Quick question, Marcia. For your undocumented sick leave, percentage of employee, is that number within range for the city? Percentage of employee out on undocumented sick leave?
So that's actually, it's the percent of sick leave that was undocumented, so, because that number, I think we need to clarify the language here. So it's of all the sick leave that was taken in that quarter, what percent of it, of the sick leave was undocumented? So 23%.
So if you look at the next item, which is the average undocumented sick leave per employee, which I think goes more to what you're looking at, and we're not giving the citywide average here, but you're looking at approximately three days per employee, which I believe is below the city average.
Okay.
Right.
So you're doing good on undocumented sick
Yes.
leave.
Okay.
Is there any way to make that more apparent? In looking at the, I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're asking about it.
Yeah, it's got, we'll,
Good point.
So we used to carry the citywide
citywide
average.
Right.
So you would have a
Yeah.
comparison,
we could just.
and I would recommend that we put
So,
citywide average.
so citywide
back.
average, yeah, I mean, so that just goes in, whatever the,
Right.
that's,
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
probably just do the.
We're due to lose, how many more people this calendar year? I know it was, we
In
just
F-
lost one this week
You mean it-
to retirement, one more.
FY
Like a
13.
disease.
All right, so FY 13, we have 4 people that we're expecting to lose. This is your FY 13
and,
job.
and are any of them technicians?
We have, one,
One technician?
yes.
And what are the other?
We have the technician supervisor, in which we already have an eligible list for
Mhm.
to replace. And we have an advertising assistant and a word processing specialist. And typically, we replace the word processing specialist with a clerk typist.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that the one we're already working on at PEO?
Yes.
I was gonna say, of those, how many are PERs in for, and are any of them that we look at, well, let me ask that, how many PERs are in for those positions?
We have PE for 2,
For 2?
yes.
All right,
Well, they haven't been submitted to finance yet.
okay.
The procurement tech suit, has that been submitted to finance already?
Well, that's a internal,
Okay.
It's a
Promotion.
Oh, right, that's right.
Right.
That's right, okay.
But then that's gonna leave a
Vacancy.
vacancy
a
in
vacancy,
a
And then
so then
we'll-
we'll replace.
administrative
So you gotta figure out what your
Position.
backfill
Right.
and your backfill
Right.
strategy is.
Right.
Okay, all right, all right.
And I'm reviewing one for a administrative tech.
Right.
No,
Clerk
I'm reviewing
typist,
one for
clerk
clerk
typist.
typist, you're right, thank you.
The ad tech is,
Yep.
we're waiting for approval.
Right, got it.
Okay.
No, actually, this tech, we're not even there yet,
Right.
because it's a little while off.
Right.
We'll have to do another one.
All right. Staff performance?
Okay, so as Kat mentioned, we should be in the green because we're,
You hit the target?
we hit the target, we exceeded the target.
Yes.
So we're above, so we're doing good with our performance evaluations. We have 90% completed evaluations on file.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay.
So for your DC 33, so that 9%, maybe 1 or 2 people are unsatisfactory?
Or, I have to check to see, but I think it just may not be that they're current evaluations.
Yeah, that could be,
Right.
yeah. So of the current ones, 91% are satisfactory. No, wait, I think it's of the current ones, 91% are satisfactory. So there would be some with unsatisfactory.
I don't recall having
You
too
had,
many
or an
unsatisfactories.
improvement needed, and believe you had one employee who may have been.
The one, okay.
Yeah, I think we may have, when the evaluations were actually submitted, there may have been one or two. that were
One,
actually
okay.
accepted.
I can send the
So
data
for
just so
the-
you can check it if you want.
Right, so for the audience, District Council 33 employees are only rated on a two-factor scale, satisfactory and unsatisfactory. For DC 47 and non-represented employees, those are rated on a five-factor scale.
All right, so what we're missing here is for the DC 33, the category of unsatisfactory, right?
I think,
That'd be
you know,
interesting.
90% is based on, let's put it this way, we got 100% of our performance reports in, and that's our relief.
Yeah.
But personnel explains to us that if people are on their two-month or 5-month probation period, that affects the 90%, whatever, the 90%, we know we got 100% in
Right.
of the people that we had to get in for their annual performance reports.
Okay.
So I think that 91%, we have some new people in 33, so maybe they're not included in there. They aren't unsatisfactory, they aren't satisfactory, they're 2 months or 5-month probation.
So if you hired someone from another department,
For that too.
and their performance evaluation is past due, and because they're showing up in your payroll system, it's reflecting on you. But
Okay.
I think that's what you're referring to. So that'll eventually get cleaned up, but
Well, let's put it this way, we get Brian Albert sends us down, I think it's Brian Albert, that sends us down in September, a list of performance reports that have to be submitted by October 1st. Every one of those last year was submitted. That's our understanding, and we were told that by our staff, our chief of staff, who was the one charged with making sure they were in. But whenever this figure comes up, it only shows 90% or 91%, it never shows 100%. And it was explained at one point, that's because of those ones I talked about.
so in October, you were 100%.
I believe we were.
Well, I believe it ended up being December, but.
Hypothetically, in March, you hired someone from another department, and that department didn't give that employee a timely
Okay.
performance evaluation. When we look at whether that employee has a performance evaluation that's 12 months or less old, that employee will show up as being over 12 months and therefore it won't be timely. You didn't have a way of addressing that because the employee hasn't been
Right.
in your department long enough to warrant a performance evaluation. So I think that's where the variance
So I
comes
can
from.
understand that. But what I'm saying is that 91% of it, I don't think we have anybody that's unsatisfactory in 33, do we?
We'll have to check.
We would have to check.
I guess where it's
Really?
coming from was, 33 was 91% satisfactory, DC 47, only 99% of your employees are satisfactory. So,
I'm sorry, say that again?
DC 47, if I'm adding that up, right?
Is probably 100
99.
with round, there's probably rounding
Right.
problems, there's
Everybody's-
probably 100, and non-rep is probably 100.
That's
So the
correct.
question is, where's the other 90? If
Right.
you created a category so that it equals 100.
Gotcha.
Right.
Where you're not having any issues at all. You're
That's-
lucky. One of the lucky departments where you're not having.
But we
any
have-
satisfactory.
We've managed some performance in your department.
Yes, and I think we do need to check, because I think there may have been one or two unsatisfactory performance evaluations.
Well, let's,
But, right,
let's,
we can
let's,
check on
let's,
that.
let's check on, let's figure out, the other piece is that, I mean, I guess what was coming down to the simple thing is that the math needs to come together, needs to add up.
Right.
So
Right.
I think, one, you add an unsatisfactory category here, because, I mean, it is a category.
It's a real estate issue.
And then let's look at the math here. Let's
Okay.
figure out what we need to do relative to adding up the,
We'll send a clarifying.
I would also chart it.
Chart it,
I think it would
okay.
okay?
be more meaningful if you chart it.
We good?
Yes.
Everybody good? All right. All right.
Now for the best part.
Yay.
Timing.
What the timing is, boy, I tell you, you know what? Julio,
We're gonna have like a comedic interlude
I
here.
need you to come up to the table, my friend.
Hold up, Julio.
I want everybody in PhillyStat world who's watching to get a chance to see, meet, and know Julio Vallejo.
Personal side.
There you go. And we won't take it against you that you're a Cowboy fan.
No, we won't.
And neither will I, because you're a Packers fan.
There you go.
Try not to.
He decided you.
I actually kind of voted against him being employee of the quarter because of that, but I was overridden.
I like you too, Mary.
Anyway, our employee of the quarter is Julio Vallejo. Julio is currently a procurement technician supervisor in our Public Works Division, Capital Projects Unit. He graduated in 1967 from Ben Franklin High School. He began his college education at Spring Garden College before serving a 2-year stint in the U.S. Army. Julio is a Vietnam veteran. After military service, he attended Antioch University under the GI Bill. He began his public service working for the mayor's office under Mayor Frank Rizzo, serving in the Hispanic community at the Concilio Community Services. In 1984, he joined the procurement department as a technician and joined the newly formed Office of Fleet Management back in 1992. In 1993, he worked in the police department and returned to procurement in 1996. Everybody comes home. He has been a stalwart employee of the Public Works Division ever since. He will be retiring at the end of this year after 39 years with the city. He is looking forward to spending more time with his family and has already been dubbed the babysitter-in-chief for his several grandchildren. And his staff has joined us to help honor Julio. We have Debbie Myers. We have
Riley.
Debbie Riley, I'm sorry. I know it's Debbie Riley. I keep thinking of Kevin Riley from the Eagles when I think of you. We have Jessica, used to be Valentin, now it's the Aces, and Valerie Brown over on the far right there.
All right.
Julio?
Julio, thank you.
Congratulations. So tell us about, tell us something unique about procurement. You've been there for some time.
Be nice, Julio.
Be nice.
Be nice.
Actually, I don't know. There's, I work for so many mayors, starting with, Rizzo and all the way up, and different personnel in procurement, different commissioners, different purchasing managers. It's been 39 years. I'll tell you this much: when I first started, that venture, when I first started with the city, I didn't think I was going to last. I thought I was just going to be there as a stepping stone towards something better. As Hugh mentioned, I was working with the Latino community, and so when that opportunity actually came up with the city to work in procurement, I jumped on it because actually I was doing purchasing for the Concilio.
Okay.
So that's how I got into it. So I went back and took courses, postgraduate courses and stuff like that, so that I eventually wanted to work in, procurement and purchasing because I thought I enjoyed it. And I still do, actually.
That's great.
I started out working in purchasing, responsible for purchasing all the city vehicles. At that time, there was no fleet management. So it was myself representing procurement, Robert Fox from the managing director's office,
Sure.
and Dominic Schiavello with Department of Public Property, Automotive Services Division. We were it. We were the ones that were responsible. And I'll never forget the time when our deputy commissioner at the time, which was Gary Henderson, I don't know, some of you may know him, he asked for me, and I went into his office, and he said, Julio, you're becoming too much of a specialist in vehicle purchasing. We need you to become more diversified. And I said, I like buying vehicles. So he said, well, I got news for you. They're starting up a fleet management department. And Riley Harrison at the time requested me that I represent them. So I said, it sounds interesting. So either you stay with us and become more diversified, or you go and work for fleet management. Ground level, I figured, what the heck, might as well try it.
Sure.
I did. Didn't last too long. But then I went on to, Len Leibowitz contacted me while I was in fleet management. He said, Julio, I need you to work for me well, they were working on a lot of reports dealing with police cars and vehicles. So we did a lot of researching, a lot of reports and everything, going to different cities. I was working with him closely on that, and that was something very interesting, going to New York, Baltimore, and seeing how they operated their fleet and everything, and so it was very interesting, and I did that, and major accomplishment, at least I thought so, and we were able to come up with some dynamic information. And then I got a call from Procurement, my dear friend Sandra Early, who at the time was the Public Works supervisor. She says, "Julio, how would you like to come back to Procurement?" I said, "No, thank you very much," thinking that I was going to go back to SS&E, which is Service Supplies and Equipment. But she says, "No, I need you in Public Works. I want you to start, working with construction-type contracts." And I said, "Oh, that's a new wrinkle." So the rest is history.
There you go.
I started with, and I said, "Yes, I'll come back." And at the time, I met with our deputy at the time, which was Joe Resta, and they interviewed me, and they said, "Yeah, come on over." And like I said, the rest was history. And I'll never forget the time when Sandra, or Sandy left, and she was getting ready to retire, and she said, "Julio, I think I'm leaving Public Works in good hands. I taught you everything I could learn. I mean, I could teach you, and I think you're ready." And I said, "No, I'm not." "No, I'm not, Sandy. I'm not you." Because Sandra has been working with Procurement Public Works ever since she started with the city. She knew it like the back of her hand.
Sure.
But it took her to leave for me to be able to kind of like go in that position to realize, hey, she taught me really good. And I enjoyed it. I still do, but the time has come for me to leave. It's 39 years is a long time.
Absolutely.
And no, Hugh, I'm not going to become my grandchildren's permanent babysitter. Although my daughter-in-laws, both of them want me to. In fact, they were at the house yesterday. But no, I love them dearly. What am I going to do now that I become retired at the end of the year? I don't know. I got some things cooking right now. I want to take the time off for a while, sit back and see how things, work out. I just made the public announcement, as he knows, with the Contractors Association. They were all bent out of shape. What we're going to get now, we've relied on you for so many years, and I said, you'll be in good hands, don't worry about it. But it's been great. It's been a long ride. I enjoyed it. And I think I'm leaving the city with competent staff. They're all great. In fact, I'm not saying that because I selected them, but because I knew that they were great from the get-go. But I think everything will be in good hands. And again, I think, as I told Mary one time, she said, "Julio, why are you leaving?" I said, "Well, it's 39 years. I've gotten to that point where my ideas, my way of thinking are old. You need young blood. You need new ideas, younger ideas. So I'm just going to ride out into the sunset and say goodbye."
There you go.
Thank you. It's been great.
In my short time here, I've heard nothing and had nothing but a great experience working with you. And you're going to be sorely missed.
Thank you.
And we appreciate everything you've done and continue to do until you walk out for what you've done for the city and what you do in procurement.
Thank you.
Again, thanks much again. All right, Hugh, or on last couple slides, some key
Yeah,
challenges.
we got some key challenges, and we have some key wins.
Want me to take this? I'll
Sure,
take
go
this.
ahead.
All right, so staffing transitions, you'll notice that when we get over to key wins, that's also a win of ours. But staffing transitions goes into some of the things we've already talked about. We need to stabilize. We've had some, we've had some people move on for retirement reasons, for other reasons. We've also had people out temporarily, but we're starting to get more people in and get new energy in, and I think that will be a win very, very shortly, and only a win. Lack of competition, something we kind of touched on earlier, that, we still on average get about 2 bids per, responses to our invitation and bids per contract opportunity, and we just really want to look into that and see what we can do to increase our competition. You want to say anything
Yeah, and
else
it's
about that?
basically the migration of speed is what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So, we were unable to really take that on as a project because of just resources, staffing resources. So we're planning to do that in a couple weeks. And at that point in time, if it's successful, we'll move over to fill it out and go. Yeah,
Okay.
at least.
So this challenge is related to being able to do the duplicate
Yeah.
testing, right? Okay, and having the staff to do that.
Sorry, I took your punchline earlier in the
Yes,
meeting.
yeah, I forgot that I included it. I could have just said,
Yeah.
wait.
Key wins,
It's coming.
key wins. Trevor, you want to touch on the significant
Yeah, we've had
contract awards?
We've had a couple, contracts, significant contracts, and, even though that we were understaffed and things have, been delayed on some fronts, some fronts they've been on time, and the airport has a facility maintenance contract that was awarded this past quarter. It's one of the largest contracts in the city. And, we've moved into this new fiscal year, and it's already started up, and there hasn't been any hiccups, really. So that's, a positive note. And then, again, another major contract that we have on, a 3 or 4 year basis is summer lunches for Parks and Rec. And again, we were able to award that contract, get it in place, and starting on time.
And the C400 inventory reporting improvement, that's an improvement that OIT has been working with Procurement on being able to convert the information that's in C400, which is a legacy system, into an Excel spreadsheet for the departments, including OIT, to be able to sort what their inventory is. Now, the reporting that comes out of C400 will still be the report of record. However, it will be easier to use this Excel spreadsheet to sort through how many products and items that you have of a particular material.
Not, wait 1 second here, if you would, please.
Yeah, sure.
Under contract awards, I want to add one that Julio's getting ready to work on. It's not a huge dollar value one, but it is a very visible one, and I think it's important. As you know, the Christmas Village has been operated differently over the last couple of years than most of our concessions, and the law has said now it's a concession. We have to. So Julio's meeting this afternoon, right?
That's right.
With Jim Harrigan, and the RFPs are about ready to go out, and will be issued shortly. And as I said, it's right across the street, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if we can get more than just one vendor. Because we're looking for one vendor to manage the whole operation.
Yeah, interesting.
So whether it's going to be the same guy or whether somebody else comes in and whether we want somebody else wants. I don't think we've gotten a whole lot of money out of that, but I don't know because I'm not privy to exactly. But I think maybe we can make some bucks over there.
This is a recreation concession contract.
Yes, it is.
Where's it gonna be this year? Where's it gonna be this year?
As far as I know, the same place. It was very successful there.
Oh, that's right.
Because 2 years ago, when it was across the street where Occupy was, I could look out that window, and then now I can look out the opposite window and see both, and they're much busier in the place where they are now than when they were at,
Yeah.
I think it
across
gets
the
more
street.
foot traffic.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
facilitates
cutting
more
through
traffic.
and stuff.
Going
Mhm.
through Love Park and Dilworth Plaza.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And so, the third bullet, office supplies?
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit. I mean, the city entered into a cooperative contract for office supplies, and, as just an interesting note, we did it with the vendor, did a year-to-year comparison, and the city has spent $55,000 less than what we did prior year. Is that, it's about 7.5% savings. Of course, that may be a result of departments spending less or buying less volume. I can't really tell you one way or the other. We don't have that direct insight into specific items that were purchased, but it has translated into a savings, about 7.5% savings on that contract. So, and additionally, I also throw out there, according to the vendor, we've spent 46% of our dollars on what they consider environmental products. So it goes towards buying greener.
Okay.
That's great. And then I touched base already on staffing transitions. Not only, was, us going through people moving on or taking short-term leave, but we have been able to fill those positions with the help of the Office of Human Services. And also we have been able to find some key people within city government to join us, and we're very excited.
Yes, you've put together quite the team. My hat's off to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Coaching comes to mind?
I wouldn't say coaching, but you've done a very good job of backfilling some key vacancies and things like that, so.
Okay, great.
I won't make any comments until we're off the air.
All right.
And we're back to our core mission, which we've already read, so I'm not going to read that one again. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening to us and giving us input, because we value your input. And we'll move on from there. There's some more information for people who want to contact Kat or any of that group. And 311 was supposed to be, I thought they were up there, but they're not. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think, one, it was a good end to the quarter, I think for the most part. I think it was some of our typical issues that we can't seem to solve, you know, i.e. the advertising piece. You know, it still is a burr under the saddle, if you will. But I think that in preparation for the new format, let's make certain that we get our targets nailed down, fine tune those points that we need to, that are metrics that we need to. And again, on the technology front, I hope for this year that we don't have that constant circular discussion around technology. Let's figure out what we need to do specifically for those 10, whatever items there are. Nail them down, let's get a deliverable, let's get a date, and let's work the plan. Let's figure out a plan and work to the plan on that whole thing. And I think lastly, on the survey piece, I think we're gonna need to have a further conversation
Okay.
on how we want to fashion that piece, what we're gonna look for. I'm going to probably
Yes.
solicit your help on that piece, just, again, figuring out what we want to do going forward with that piece.
Okay.
With that, I thank you all. Again, good quarter, and look forward to seeing what happens in quarter 1 of 13.
All right.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.